Hi everyone and welcome back to the Byolete podcast, the podcast where we discuss the science behind the brand.
I thought you were going straight into it.
Oh, sorry, just before we came on onto this, I said, you lead this one, Lee.
Okay, well, I thought we were going to open up with just a general bit of conversation.
Yeah.
So the last week's been good for the business. We've been trying to go to a lot more events.
Mm-hmm.
So we've went to Move Networking, which is with Mark Waldron. Then we went to Reformer Pilates at 75 Orton Street.
Yeah.
And then we went to 2 run clubs, one yesterday and one today. So that was Sweat to Social and then Rise Run Club.
Yeah. We've done a lot this week, and anyone who's listened to this who has a business may resonate with the fact that networking is really important. But it's all of the stuff that you potentially don't really realise when you set up a business that you need to do. But yeah, it's been a really busy week, a positive week. I've really enjoyed it. Met loads of lovely new people. But yeah, like you say, it's Sunday now. It's about 9:30, 9:45 or something on a Sunday evening.
It is. We had to battle to come on here.
We did. I think we're trying to do so many things. But obviously the podcast is where all this started for us, and so you very rightly so told me, "Come on, Jess, let's do it." And
yeah,
I'm glad that we are doing it.
And it's something that we have to do every week on a Sunday, and it just shows consistency and that we are actually sticking to our word. That's why I was passionate about doing it this evening.
And I'm so glad that you did tell us to do it.
So I thought I'd pick the topic, and the topic we're going to do today is about risk evaluation, with mainly to do with cardiovascular risk and why the current model within the NHS, and I think Europe at the moment, even the US, is flawed.
Yeah.
So a bit of context is the current models tend to only evaluate risk over 10 years. But as we've been talking about for the last God knows how long, that this disease of cardiovascular origin, it takes 2-3 decades on average, doesn't it?
Yeah.
To manifest. So why do we only look at it as over the next 10 years?
Yeah.
And why do we let this cohort of people go before we intervene again?
Yeah. So I believe that the reason behind it is because as you do get older, the risk does increase. But we were saying this week, we were trying to rack our brains as to why the decision has been made to do this risk score. I think you actually can't get a risk score if you're below the age of 40. Is that right? I think the calculator just doesn't allow you to actually get an accurate risk anyway.
Yeah, I think Q risk, which is the one we tend to use within the UK, I actually haven't looked at the bottom age, but I think it was 25. 25, 30. But
okay.
But then when we've listened to US professors, they're saying 35, 40, aren't they?
Yeah. Okay.
So there's a disparity straight away.
Yeah.
But the one thing that stuck out for us was that apparently 50% of all infarcts, so meaning stroke and heart attack, which is caused by a blockage, happen before the age of 60. But when you do anyone's risk, so for example, us now, where probably me, my cardiovascular risk is probably, or the disease is already progressing at a substantial rate. If I do my risk now, it's proportionally very low. And that's because if you think about the population of the world, the majority of people who are alive are below the age of 60. So even though 50% of infarcts happen before the age of 60, that's a relatively small number in comparison to the population, because these risk calculators are based mainly on age. I know we put in cholesterol, blood pressure. The new updated ones have
rheumatoid arthritis is one.
Arthritis. I think they have mental health.
Yeah. Schizophrenia is one of them.
Yeah, and I think they account for not that much in the proportionality of the score.
Okay, so it's the age that is really...
Age is the biggest determining factor. So if you look at anyone over the age of 60, the population's reduced, and then 50% of people will still have an infarct over the age of 60, because that's the remaining population. So then in terms of comparison, the number is a lot higher in terms of weighted percentage. Have I explained that very well?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So the amount of people that are under the age of 60 dilutes the actual severity of what's happening. So in terms of risk calculation, when it comes to the 10-year one, if you're 40 years old, not many people tend to have a heart attack at 40 in comparison to the population, if you see what I'm saying. So your 10-year risk might be 3%. Now, to someone, 3% doesn't mean that much. You've got a 97% chance of something not happening.
Yeah.
If you reverse that and say, well, you've got a 3% chance of winning the lottery, I doubt many people would be putting the mortgages on them winning the lottery. But when it comes to cardiovascular risk and health, we expect people to go, oh, that's a 3% risk, I could have this.
Oh, yeah.
So the numbers are relatively meaningless. So that's why we're advocating for a 30-year potential risk calculator, because then it might go up to 25, 30%. So then you can say, well, it's 1 in 4, 1 in 3, and that's got a lot more weight behind it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's what that's what I think is the whole system needs to be changed, it needs to be reorganized, because we are missing so many people in this cohort of people.
I think we had a conversation this week where we tried to sort of justify why maybe, in the NHS we don't treat people, or we don't even look at people under the age of, well, I mean, the average age for a health check, like a MOT they call it, is 50, which is where you will get all of your blood pressure taken, your height, your weight, your cholesterol levels.
That's a good point.
But and so like what we're trying to advocate for with Byolete is that, well, if you start testing at the age of 30, at least you've got a trend as to where, your blood markers are and everything. But we couldn't come up with an answer, basically, because it doesn't make any sense to me anyway, that we don't look at preventative health more, because in the long run it will save so much money for the NHS. And so it's a concept that I am struggling with. We would maybe saying, oh, it could be to do with the fact that you would have to train people up to do it. Maybe it's taking some resources away from being able to treat other things. And I know that obviously the NHS is stretched, but it's just like it's not even like we're so far away from being able to like sort of go into preventative health that it's a crazy
We went down a conspiracy loophole, didn't we?
Yeah.
Because if you're listening from the US, it makes financial sense for pharmaceutical companies or people who are high up within the health industry to not get people on the preventative ladder, because you are going to financially capitalize through ill health. But my understanding of the NHS is we have a set budget, I think 200 billion. You would ideally not want that many people sick, because that has to come out of our budget. It's the taxpayers' money. That money could go elsewhere. Where it would go is another question, but we have to pay for it, whereas within America and other countries it's private, so that company can capitalise on that. So it makes no sense from the UK's point of view to not be putting these people through. And we've said it before, I've had another couple of blood tests for patients under the age of 40 in the last week since we've done the last one, again rejected. Or when I've looked at the results for other people, they've said stable, and they are far from stable. They stick out like a sore thumb. Like, you could help that person right now. And this is the thing that you said, if there's anything that anyone takes away from today's podcast, is that, like I said, 50% of heart attacks or strokes happen before the age of 60. The first time you come into contact with the healthcare system generally tends to be at the age of 50. So we're giving you a 10-year chance to mitigate your risk.
That was happening.
That's been happening for years, but also to try and go against 50% of infarcts that are more likely going to happen within the next 10 years, instead of giving you a 30-year head start.
Yeah. I think
that's
as well,
ludicrous.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. But I also think as well, I was been speaking to a couple of people this week about obviously what we were doing, and another angle to take from it is that when you do get to 50, that's 50 years of habits that you've built up. And so it's very difficult to then sort of say, well, actually, all of those things that you're doing with your diet and your lifestyle, you're drinking, you maybe smoking or vaping or whatever it may be, you have to change it within like the next year. It's very difficult. Like, you can't just go from 0 to 100 with it, with the way that we should be living our lives. And so I just find it. I just think it's sort of setting people up to fail, the way that the current system is being ran. I think people deserve to be able to actually, like, the thing is that, and we've said this many times on the podcast, is that we're not trying to tell people to do anything. We're just trying to bring people's attention that, if it was us, and what we're trying to do is say test at the age from 30, because then it gives you the choice. Then if you want to change your lifestyle, it's not easier, but it just makes it less difficult potentially to be able to do it over a longer period of time, rather than going from doing nothing to doing everything all of a sudden.
And what effect that has in a short space of time is probably going to be negligible, as opposed to that 30-year lifespan that you could have done it over. But we went to a run club today, like we've just said, and I was speaking to someone who's within the fitness industry, and I was trying to get a point across that a lot of people think that we are reimbursed for prescribing. This person didn't think that, but I was just trying to get across the point that if people turned up to our clinic and didn't have any medication on their record and we done a review, we still walk away with the same salary.
Yeah.
So it's in our best interests to actually get people off medication.
That's obviously within the NHS.
Within
Whether
the
that's the
NHS,
same in America, I
again, I
don't think
can't
it is.
comment.
But yeah, but again, yeah.
But that's the thing, is we're not trying to tell people what to do. We're just giving amongst a wealth of misinformation of what we see on a daily basis, what we're actually doing. So our Instagram profiles are evidence of us. If we say do this amount of running each week, this amount of strength training, we're actually doing that, and it's not caused us any health inequalities at the moment.
I actually, there's a good podcast that we potentially could do, because I had all my bloods done, and I maybe could do a podcast on what what they've come back at, because I think it was interesting. Like I have been feeling a bit tired lately, and I thought, oh, maybe my vitamins or anything or something were off, but everything was perfect, to be honest. I think it is just down to stress and like setting up the business and stuff, which is probably to be expected. But obviously whatever we're doing in our lifestyle is working. And yeah,
it is. We're just trying to focus on preventative health. And when it come up the other day about this 10-year risk calculator, it just baffled me. Why are we looking at something that happens over such a long time, only over 10 years? And then what happens to these patients when they will normally come back? You can literally type in the worst demographics, because it goes off postcode, it goes off everything. Where you can type in the worst demographics and it can come back with a very low percentage. You leave them. I mean, blood pressure, if you come back with a normal blood pressure under the age of, I want to say under the age of 55, if it's okay, we don't even look at it for at least another 5 years, because it always comes up as no blood pressure checked within the last 5 years.
Oh yeah.
So with a risk calculator, we're leaving them every 10 years. So you go from 30 to 40, your risk, if you've got bad habits, has gone up exponentially. But in terms of a calculator and proportionality, it's not changed that much. And we're missing these people. And are we getting better at diagnosing diseases, or are we just becoming sicker as a population when we can inadvertently avoid it?
Yeah, I think we debate this all the time. I think it is a mixture of both of the things that you just mentioned. I think we are obviously getting better at diagnosing, but I think we are generally, getting sicker, because we live in a world just of ease and abundance.
But why? I still don't understand that, and I've got to be careful what I say in terms of politically here, but why the UK doesn't opt for preventative health. It makes no sense. Like I said, it does make sense within private healthcare communities, because the companies who are funding the medication and treatments will make money. And if you go down a preventative ladder, unless they're set up for it, they're going to lose a lot of money to shareholders. I can see that. But for the NHS, I don't see, from a financial point of view, why we don't do it.
The only thing that I could surmise, and again, I absolutely have not looked into this, but it could be the fact that maybe these companies do subsidise some of the things that the NHS do. Where does the NHS money come from? I know that it's predominantly from taxpayers' money, but
the donations from higher up. That's the only thing that makes sense, because atorvastatin, I know people are against statins, but if you look at atorvastatin and the data that comes out with, for example, it can lower your cardiovascular risk by tenfold. It's ridiculous. And it costs, what, 35p for 28 tablets a month? Imagine if you've done that all the time. A heart attack costs 25,000, a stroke, you're looking at 35, 40,000 with rehabilitation.
But even going beyond that, so obviously I know that, because with the argument with the statin, if we did, so this was one of the things that we said, I think, in a couple of podcasts ago, where if we did actually give a risk score to maybe people over the 30 years like we want to, there would be a high proportion of people who probably would actually qualify for being on a statin. Now, if you give any medication, any pharmaceutical drug, to a large cohort of people, you are going to get issues,
of course, which
is what we've seen with the COVID-19 injection. And so I understand that may be a reason as to why we don't test, because it could be that everybody needs a statin, and then you're going to get issues over, like, then the NHS could probably come overburdened with that issue. But you can go beyond that, and actually an easier way to sort of help out the population that's getting sicker would be to sort out the food industry, so subsidise healthier foods. And that's an even easier way, where you're going to target the whole population subsidise gym memberships or educate children, from very young ages of what to eat, how to cook it, and then that's an even easier way,
It's just
in my
like
opinion.
grassroots
But it is,
education, isn't it?
And so that's why that's the bit that doesn't really, I don't.
Well, you don't understand. And also, I want to make out that I don't want to put everyone on a statin.
Yeah.
I just use statins
But
because
obviously that's the gold standard of treatment, and that is
they
what.
do work.
Yeah.
Yes, every medication comes with side effects, but I'm just saying, in terms of, in this economy anyway, we always tend to give some form of tablet pharmacotherapy. So if you're going to wait all that time to give one once they've had a heart attack or stroke, why not move it forward 20 years and prevent the cost, the burden on the patient's family and quality of life?
Yeah.
That's my point. But the one step further again, which is what we advocate for, is no medication if you can avoid it. And by putting all these things in place, like you said, if you went into our village now, the high street, 90% of it, would you say 90%? Probably 95%, apart from the Tesco.
Yeah, which again is like
all unhealthy choices.
Yeah.
Like, there used to be a fruit and veg shop, all these things, they've all gone.
Yeah, again,
We need
and
to put all them things
of
back in,
course.
and then it gives people no excuse to go for it. At the moment, you can go in there and, unless you're getting your hair cut or getting a takeaway in this village,
and
you're not doing anything.
Yeah, and obviously the councils have to approve what businesses are able to set up within a community, and so yeah, they, like you say, it's not the same as what it was, and I think we are getting sicker because of literally that as an example. We're getting better at treating diseases. We have all these treatments available, all this education, but we're not doing the fundamentals. I think the fundamental things of just health, and so that's community, that's eating healthy, movement, managing stress. Also, I think having a phone constantly there, it's stimulating us 24/7.
Of course,
All of just the fundamental things of health we're just not getting right, and so I do think we are getting sicker.
Yeah, but also I've changed my mind on a bit on last week's one. I think, was it last week's one where you were saying proportionality of blame?
Oh yeah.
I think it is swinging more towards higher up. I still think people have accountability in terms of.
You have to take accountability.
Of
You
course.
you can't blame everything on, oh well, it's just the way that it is, because the world wouldn't.
But after our week of watching every conspiracy theory, which I'm not going to bring up on here because it would probably go down another rabbit
But then
hole.
I think again that's where like people come up and say conspiracy theories, but it's just
until proven correct, it is still a theory, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's just opening your eyes to, okay, well, what is there an alternative option? Is there other things that are going on that potentially we're not seeing? And it happens in every single walk of life where there is coercion, there's collusion, there's smoke
and this wasn't
mirrors
specifically about medical and healthcare.
This was
actually
a lot of things.
More political than anything, but I do feel as though,
with some of the things that we've just brought up in this podcast, where we, subsidising healthy foods, that is a very easy choice or something that could be done, tomorrow if a bill was signed. It's not, a difficult thing. You're supporting local farmers, you're supporting businesses if you do that. Why would you not do that?
Because I think funding from other places is a lot greater.
Yeah,
I think that's a simple answer.
And I think that's why it sort of it sort of proves in my mind that maybe these conspiracy theories are not conspiracy theories, and that is what's going on. That we live in a capitalistic world, unfortunately, which is good in some ways, but I think when it comes down to health, there is like this grey blurred line where I don't think we should be capitalising on people's health.
We shouldn't. We should give people autonomy, but we should give people the right information.
Of course, yeah.
And I think at the moment, a lot of the information that's displayed in front of people is incorrect.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
But that was quite good.
Yeah.
It went on for a bit longer than what I thought, but again, there's so many things that I want to look into, and it's trying to relate it back to the overall ethos of Byolete. So this one fitted in. We were looking at supplements again the other day in terms of electrolytes, because we were doing intense exercise, and we were wondering, is there a way that we need to be including these?
Yeah.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
And I think it's related to heart health because electrolytes all involved.
Yeah, of course.
But I'm not going to commit to anything because something comes up.
Of course, we just go with the flow and decide, because we've also been looking today again at insulin resistance. I know that they don't tend to do that well on social on our
A lot of people
platform.
don't like looking at insulin resistance, do they? But it is. If anyone wants to look into something that predicts disease, in the majority of cases, insulin resistance, yeah,
It's the underlying cause of most long-term chronic
it is.
conditions,
And it can be shown 10 to 15 years prior, at least 5 years anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that probably concludes this week's
It
podcast.
does.
If you've got to this point, then thank you so much for listening or watching on whatever platform you are on. If you haven't already, then please like and then subscribe to our whatever channel that you're listening on, because it really does help us out. And as always, we'll catch you at the next one.